Hi, folks. I'm Kevin Daley, opinion editor here for the Griffin and Griff TV, joined as ever by Griff Insider's host, Claire Dirrigl, whose hair is looking totally Aphroditean today. Just always phenomenal. For the record, Claire carries granola bars with her, so next time you're hungry, find Claire Dirrigl. She's come through clutch in an important situation.
I think that's what does the hair. I think that's what makes it like that.
I like it. And also by Anthony Kroese, Executive Vice President, outgoing Executive Vice President of the Undergraduate Student Association, and also Griffin Insider. We've just watched the 5 presidential candidates take the stage here at Montante Cultural Center, about to face a steep volley of questions from current USA President Brock Wilkinson and Griffin Editor-in-Chief Aidan Ryan. We're going to step off screen here, but we're going to offer our commentary throughout the proceedings.
Yep. And I just wanted to hear your feelings on the student athletic gap that we're now experiencing on campus. If you have plans to tackle that issue, or just let's hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Can you repeat that? Because it doesn't sound clear to me. I'm sorry.
The student-athlete gap, the bridge between student athletes.
Okay. One of the problems that I noticed as soon as I started at Canisius is that students don't take a lot of pride in their athletics. I remember my freshman year talking to friends at other colleges and universities in the U.S. He would talk about how much everyone got together for the games and the way that everyone was just coming together and just so excited for this. And I didn't see that at Canisius. It was kind of disappointing. And that I think that if we really want to bridge that gap, part of it has to be that we need to show greater support for our athletics. We need to see greater attendance at our games. And some ways that we can do that is we have to create a culture that really is taking pride in Canisius. Part of that could be events that precede games.
Worth noting that Neil Savoy has Skyped into us from Spain, currently away on a year-long transatlantic jaunt to the European continent. I believe it's well past 3 o'clock his time.
Yeah, I think it's about there. He was committed to being here right from the start. He said no matter what time it is, he wants to be Skyped in, so I do give him that.
Bravo, Neil.
I think it's very effective. A lot of candidates who are also out of the state right now have sent in pre-recorded videos, so to Skype in shows his commitment, I think.
Anthony, you thought that during his pre-prepared remarks, John Solak had probably the definitive moment of tonight's proceedings, at least so far.
I did. I do have to give him a lot of credit when he stepped out from in front of the podium, or behind the podium, rather. He went out in front of the people, and he walked around, and it was just amazing to me. I think he definitely won the stage presence for me.
You know, pairing it with the form over function quote, relating it to his biology background, I thought was particularly effective.
I agree, especially when you're putting a bio major up for presidency.
To go to a club meeting or to do things that get you involved outside of your sport. The main way that I want to combat this is to have more events like the Thanksgiving dinner that was put on by RHA, wonderful job, RHA by the way, that engages all groups of students, and not just the students, the administrators as well, because we as Canisius, we're not just the students, there's faculty, there's staff, there's administrators, and it all makes it up. And I'd like to see more events like that on campus. Also, I've proposed that on the My Canisius login page, in front of Lions Hall, not directly but online, that all the events going on campus that day are listed right there. So if there's, say, a lacrosse game going on that night, maybe you play lacrosse in high school, you've never seen a game. Oh, well, okay, maybe I'll go try it out.
You know, I live next to the lacrosse team, Anthony. I'm not sure I'd be enthusiastic about going to see him at a game.
As a former lacrosse player myself, I might go. You know, I think it is also good to note that John Solak ran for senator his freshman and sophomore years, and it wasn't until his junior year that he did finally make it into the Senate.
Well, clearly has a demonstrated interest in student government, then.
He has always had really good demonstration of that, and I think he does have the stage presence for it as well.
But I feel like athletes should support their students. Like what John said with the RHA Thanksgiving dinner, I think athletes should maybe have a dinner like that, and students can have a dinner like that.
You know, what Sydnie here is talking about is interesting. The Athletes for Athletes program, at least in my anecdotal experience, has often been criticized insofar as athletes are often, it appears, apathetic while attending each other's games. I won't comment on the veracity of that, but still it's an observation that's widely held.
You know, I wonder if they could almost expand that, maybe clubs for clubs or athletes for clubs, athletes for students, and make it a little bit more widespread rather than just athletes for athletes.
A great thought.
I agree. I mean, people love going out to the games. We always go out and support the athletes, and athletes support each other. But there's the drama club, there's plays, things like that. Maybe we could get the athletes involved for the other students too.
I think it would be great if you had an athletes for theater night and all of a sudden they show up for the musical.
You didn't want the pink microphone?
There's nothing against color. We just have one here. I think you guys have some great ideas, and I think that having an athlete hosted dinner at the dining hall is a great idea. I get a lot of, shall we say, FaceTime with the athletes quite a bit with my current position as C-Block president, and also I'm the women's lacrosse team manager as well. And I can tell you from what John said, there's lift, there's practice, or there's games, they're on the road, and there isn't a lot of time, and that is a real struggle for the athletes.
Just received a Snapchat up here in the media balcony from one Ann Continetti, the Dread Sovereign of the Student Programming Board, VP for Programming. Picture of the panel of candidates focused on Neil Savoy. The caption, the all-seeing Neil.
It's very funny to see Neil running for president, especially with his background in programming. I almost thought that he would have been a shoo-in for the vice president of programming after Ann left.
I agree. I mean, his sophomore year, he was co-chair for Springfest, so you kind of assume that he'll be more akin to stepping into that role. But I think because he's been involved in Senate since his freshman year, he knows how this goes, and he thinks that he could be an effective leadership, combining his SVB experience as well.
And I also think, having served as the vice president of programming for a semester myself, that having that programming background gives you a great set of knowledge and a great set of skills that you can take into any form of politics, especially when it comes to student governments on a college campus.
We really just pitch as clubs, to talk to everybody, to say, hey, come join my club if you like this, blah, 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 whatever your pitch is. But I think that there's a way we can specifically cater to athletes and say, we'd really like you to be a part of this club. Please come when you can and be as welcoming as possible. I think it's absolutely a two-way street. Something needs to change, and that's definitely on the agenda, should I be elected.
Thank you.
All right, so when we talk about the student-athlete gap to student on campus, there's really two things that we should just do, and that's something that I really want to do. The first issue we have is distance, in the metaphorical sense, and also in the physical distance between campus and the athletic facilities. That puts a physical barrier between us and them. Now, we've just heard a lot of talk about throwing some more programming to bring the students together. Well, as we've seen, the more we program, it's not changing. Things aren't changing. There's still a gap. We've talked about it for years. We need physical change. We need physical change on this campus, and that comes with...
I think it'll be interesting to see how programming does change now with the new SPV bylaws having been passed and SPV taking a new direction next year.
Once elections are concluded, the Griffin plans on taking up that very subject. So I'd urge students interested in that topic or interested in programming generally to keep an eye on the Griffin's pages in the coming weeks.
Definitely looking forward to that.
Also worth noting that hosts Brock Wilkinson and Aidan Ryan have promised to cut off any of the candidates who they believe are, quote, spitting nonsense. So I'll be interested to see how much they want to take control of these proceedings.
I'm looking forward to comment on that if that does happen.
Me too.
Fostering of cohesiveness and unity as a student body is going to happen in that space.
Follow-up question for Mr. Plewinski and for the audience. Follow-up questions, candidates will have 1 minute to respond. You mentioned a student union as one of the needs that is most pressing at this point. Do you think that would be a realistic goal to achieve, and how would you go about doing that?
Well, when I think about my role as president at Canisius, and I think about the future of Canisius here, I think we're at, like I said, we're at a crossroads. We can pick two paths. We can either continue on the path we're on, and we can throw programming in and try and reform that. I don't think that's working. What I'm going to do is I'm going to aim big and work with the members of the administration, whoever it will be, as I've already made the foundation relationships with them, where I can start right on day one with making this. Maybe it won't happen in my term in office, but as we've seen, that doesn't have to happen while you're in office to make it, happen in the future. So if we lay the foundation for it now, we can pursue this in the future.
I think what Mr. Plewinski is referencing is Brock's Fitness Center.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far afield with discussion of the fitness center, but Certainly.
Second question
He,
tonight, we'll start again.
I thought appeared a bit evasive there. I think found his way towards the end with the answer of laying the groundwork for a student union to come.
If you're elected, what would be your first act of office? But second, I'm interested in your long game. What would be the project that you would put on the back burner? Something like a fitness center, or a student union, or club room renovations that you think would take experience and collaboration, and perhaps would be your swan song as executive.
My primary objective is definitely to take a look at council presidents, and like I said, I really want to change the way that it functions as of now. But the most immediate thing I would do is I would want to look at how clubs are now. I think that we need to see them organized in such a way that they're grouped together based on their function or...
Talking about the structure of the Council of Presidents, it's almost as though he thinks he's Anthony Kroese.
You know, it's interesting to see how many people are bringing up the Council of Presidents, and that's something I'm very pleased to see, especially seeing as the first year it was a very tumultuous beginning. So to see it continued and starting to grow, and the presidents are now taking it into effect as being part of their presidency is really a good thing.
Which I think has everything to do with the fact it's been increasingly asserting its presence this year. So I think, sort of demonstrates that COP can be taken as seriously as its members take it.
I think it'll be interesting in the next 5 years to see where it ends up.
Agreed.
And we really do care about the student body, but when you have a group filled with the presidents of every club on campus, who better can speak for clubs than that, or a group of 30 or so undergraduates, and then some of which are going to come from clubs, and that's going to express some sort of special interest, whether you really want it to happen or not. And then you have clubs that are underrepresented in that way as well. And that's really my main goal during my time in office, and that's really what I hope to be remembered for if elected.
Thank you. I think we want to go the other way now. And Andy, you go next.
Okay, so on day one, the first thing I'm taking care of, because it makes me very upset when I open my inbox and I have 1,000 emails sitting there that I do not want to look at. And I'm sure all of you can agree with that and can rationalize with that as well. And that comes with working with the people of ITS to make sure or give students the option to unsubscribe from emails that they do not want. That's one of the chief concerns as I was walking around recently.
That's an interesting topic of discussion. We did try and tackle that, and as of right now, as far as I am aware, we do not have the unsubscribe feature on our listserv.
You don't want to row and keep getting emails from it, it's just annoying. So that's going to change right on day one. Now, we just talked about the Council of Presidents. That's going to change as well. I envision the Council of Presidents becoming more of a check on Senate right now, as there isn't one. You guys, I'm looking at the check on Senate. And I believe that the Council of Presidents becoming more of a House of Representatives to our Senate here would be perhaps the greatest advance in Canisius Club programming on campus that we've had so far. Now, I'd also like to open up the communication between Senate and the student body. Now, how do we do this? What do we do to accomplish this? Now, we reform the email program. We take care of that. And then we give the power to email over to our Vice President of Communications. They can have a better idea of who should get.
It's interesting that he does bring that up. That is something that the Vice President of Communication, Christina Cicerano, is working on right now with ITS.
From everything I've heard, it seems like the Vice President for Communications next year is going to play a major role in improving transparency within USA. It seems to be a recurrent theme among 5 presidential candidates.
I agree. Part of the end of the year wrap-up we're doing this year is the new position holders that are, once they're newly elected, will work alongside with the outgoing members. So I think that's going to be a great time to reformat those positions and make the new responsibilities and duties specifically outlined, almost realigning of the executive board.
So I think if we come right out and see what our objectives are for the year, that's something that everyone's on the same page and we can all get behind. It's a positive message to create a conducive learning environment.
Thank you.
I absolutely agree with the changes to Council of Presidents. I sit in those meetings the first Tuesday of every month, and I find myself wondering a lot, often rather, why are we here? We vote on some legislation once in a while, or we're here to voice our events that are coming up and stuff like that. But Council of Presidents represents the majority of the students on our campus. So the fact that they aren't being used as a voice right now is unfair, I think. But first and foremost, we need to bridge the gap between resident students and commuter students. And I talked to some commuter students the other day in the commuter student lounge, and one of the things I got was changing Griffin's after dark. It's on Saturdays most of the time now. We need to move it to Fridays. A lot of commuter students aren't coming back on the weekends, so there's no point for them to come back for Griffin's After Dark. If you've been to Griffin's After Dark, there's a lot of great programs that they put on, activities that you can do. I know one time freshman year that was like paintball with Nerf guns. It was awesome. But, you know, that kind of stuff, we need to be able to really communicate with everyone. I also like John's idea about putting all the events on the front page of My Canisius. I think that's brilliant as well.
You know, Kevin, I do notice down there that the VP of Programming candidates are taking notes on all the programming aspects that do come up.
You know, I had the same thought just a moment ago, but what struck me was that, though Dustin Radka and Emma Carberry are technically opponents, they're quite good friends. It seems that there's a lot of good amity between them, and I think it speaks to the closeness of the people who are involved with student programming here at Canisius.
They are, and I do hope that whoever wins, they do welcome their opponent onto their executive board.
I'm confident that'll be the case.
I'd just like to speak to Joe's point right here. As a commuter, I do think that there needs to be more programs in place for us to participate. Kids go home on the weekends, and they're not going to drive back up on a Saturday. And I think because so many students are moving out of the dorms and are starting to commute again, if you really want people to get involved with the school, you really should start targeting commuters. I think they're an underutilized force and just underutilized as part of the student body, and I think that's the key to get a lot more spirit at the school.
I agree.
I think bridging, like Andy said, the gap between the CAC and main campus is hard for athletes because they are always there. So I think that if we have a lot more facilitated events or facilitated mingling, anything between all students, between commuters earlier in the day and between athletes whenever they're free, probably on the weekends where they play games. So whenever they're free, and we can just work that out. Secondly, immediately I want to work on this Chipotle thing because everyone's hungry. So I just want to really work on that, get that going. And in the long term,
for the record, this quote Chipotle thing speaks to a comment that Brock Wilkinson let slip in last Tuesday's Council of Presidents meeting, suggesting that he was in the preliminary stages of exploring creating a new food venue on campus. Did not speak to those specifics. Did not speak to how seriously that consideration was being taken. But certainly, it has generated a lot of buzz.
What I do know is that it is a contract year for Chartwells, so they are looking to make the change on campus because that would be included in their contract for the year.
I've already mentioned my website, and I just want to say that it's form-fitting function. Instead of putting all different stuff and all different emails.
Form-fitting function seems to be something of a buzzword for the Solak campaign, a buzz phrase, I should say.
I do agree, and in the leadership world, that's referred to as the path goal theory, and that's something I see very strongly in John Solak.
Back on campus. Now, I say that with the caveats, not Chippewa, okay, that's acceptable. And the rationale for that, and I think Neil, I would love to talk to you about this because you know, by the time you're 21 in the States, there's an expectation that you can drink responsibly. So if you go to the Distinguished Alumni Dinner, they're serving drinks, and for an hour in a social setting, it's expected that you drink in a social setting responsibly. It could be a networking event when you graduate, and I think that we should have the expectations of our students too. Now, what I was actually thinking, we could propose an idea to Chipotle by day, bar by night. Who knows? The sky's the limit. Okay, see, that would perfect. So that is my long-range goal. Thank you.
Well, if you guys would like to form a task force, all 5 of you together, maybe yeah.
You know, we formerly had a bar on campus. It was called the Rathskeller, drawn from a German word for a tavern that was kept in city halls throughout Germany. This sort of speaks to an interesting dynamic in German politics. I guess they get drunk before they make important decisions.
I wonder if we were to have a bar on campus, how many of the senior members of the Student Senate we would find there, before or after.
I'd like y'all to be specific about that, and you each have a minute.
For me, I think that we really need to make the Council of Presidents a little bit more than just a consulting body. I think that when we bring issues in front of the Council of Presidents, like we did on Tuesday with the gym.
You know, my opinion column that will appear in tomorrow's Griffin of March 7 actually speaks to what I think the appropriate role for the Council of Presidents is, and why I think the sort of thing that Joe is proposing would be, I think, inappropriate. And in that, I think you and I are of the same mind, Anthony.
Yeah, it worries me to have the Council of Presidents become another body that is voting in its powers, just like the Senate. Yes, I do think that there could be some room for some checks and balances, maybe. However, two bicameral houses on one campus, especially of our size, I think would make it a very difficult situation.
Would be added on to the Senate vote.
So what Joe's talking about is a bicameral form of government on our campus.
So I'm a snowboarder, and what I've learned over the years after many injuries is that when you go off the jump, you don't do anything crazy first. You wait a little while to add more elements to it. So I would say first, make it so that a unanimous vote in COP leads to a motion in Senate. Because if you have 106 clubs that can all agree on something, then that is definitely something that should be taken up in Senate. That's what I would do.
I agree with John when he's saying that having the Council of Presidents definitely, if 106 clubs who obviously all represent different sub-caucuses of Canisius College agree on one thing, that Senate should definitely take it as a motion and definitely take it very seriously. I think Council of Presidents and Senate, the gap will be bridged between, like I said, communication between both. As president, I will be planning on attending every single Council of Presidents meeting and being there because I think it's right before the hour before Senate. And I really just believe that the president of Senate and the president of Council of Presidents should be at each other's meetings.
As president of the Undergraduate Student Association, they are required to attend the Council of Presidents meeting, seeing as the Undergraduate Student Association is considered the largest club on campus.
So here's how you need to do this to get Council of Presidents to be a serious governing body on campus. You need to make a complete constitutional overhaul to the Constitution of the Undergraduate Student Association to include Council of Presidents to become a governing body. Because right now, the only governing body is the Student Senate.
It appears that there's nearly unanimity that the Council of Presidents should exist on a governing plane on par with the Undergraduate Student Association.
I can see that as being a growing idea. However, it does just worry me to have two bodies in such a small campus. Out on the West Coast in larger Jesuit schools, they do have similar bodies as the Council of Presidents, but when you only have about 2,800 undergrads, that's kind of a scary thought there.
And as I've written in my column that will appear tomorrow, I think given the way the student tax is structured and given the way the appropriations pool is structured, I'm not sure that the Council of Presidents can really lay claim to any form of legitimacy as a governing body.
One thing I do want to throw out there is the fact that when we created the Council of Presidents, and one of the things I did push for is to have it be malleable, so over the next couple of years it could change. It was never expected to remain totally as is for the rest of its existence.
USA COP will have different functions. While it would be great to see COP's decisions directly then go to Senate, it wouldn't really be efficient, and I think that it would really delay getting things done that need to be done.
Neil Savoy, the sole dissenter on the panel.
What we need to see is COP re-examined. Clubs need to be, for some may need to be consolidated. We need to see which clubs are actually active, which are not. Finances would then have to be moved primarily from their relations with USA to then COP, because really what they're doing is for clubs. It really doesn't have the direct tie with USA. USA could then function more as a representative of the student body and representing the student body to the administration, rather than getting bogged down in dealing with budgets. Clubs are the ones that care about their budgets. If I'm sure will do a great job to ensure that it's done efficiently, and they will be the best watchdogs to ensure that other clubs are not receiving too much or too little.
Thank you. Now, I wanted to kind of start off this question just stating that before I was elected president, I was on Senate for 2 years, served on Finance Committee for 2 years, ITS chair, served as part of a fraternity am part of a fraternity, and also started my own economics and finance society. And I was down in CPLD every day, and I knew the internal workings of the student government inside and out. There's a common theme here that you guys all have these grand ideas and plans, but I want to know if you guys know what actually I have to do as my role as president, because nobody's asked me. You five have not asked me what I do, besides Mr. Savoy and Mr. Solak. I just thought I'd want to hear.
Tough question from President Wilkinson.
I think that's a very tough question. All the executive vice president candidates have come to me personally and asked what the job entails and how I foresee the future of the executive vice president, especially if there is a vice president of clubs, which I do hope to see.
If you guys have read the USA Constitution, but we'll start with Mr. Rutigliano.
That would have been a great idea to ask you beforehand. Going to a few meetings, I suppose, here and there. You said
I think someone should teach Mr. Rutigliano about sound bites.
And student needs and issues. Also, I've noticed that, I rarely see you, and knowing you, having played high school basketball against you and out rebounding you, that you're a hard worker, and that consistently you're always doing something for your job. So I would assume, and I was actually going to get to this, but I would assume that you are bogged down in meetings left and right, making sure and fighting for our student needs and wants.
As student body president, as you said, besides the Constitution, I think that your job would be to talk to students and to get their concerns. And I do see that's important, talking to different students and in the hallways talking to different students. But I think as president and as a Canisius College student, there's just so much more that can be done to hear student concerns. There's so much more that could be done to just get a better feel of how people are feeling about their the issues that they're feeling, if they're feeling comfortable or not. So as president, I feel like that's an addition because I know you do work very hard, you do have a lot of meetings, but I feel like as president, I would just really work on speaking to students one-on-one, in the bathroom, in the elevator. You don't talk to people in the bathroom? And wherever, I'm very comfortable with communication.
Okay, when answering
I think that's going to take the Stall Street idea to a whole new level.
Next year. So it's not what I do, it's what you will be doing, and what's your obligations as president?
I don't know if you guys can see this, but I drew a little picture here. So at the bottom, we have students' concern, and then we have this. Neil, you see that too? Yeah, sure. Okay. So and then there's this little bridge between student concerns and the administration. Okay. And so that is the theoretical role of the president. It's to be the alleyway between what we hear from other students, what we hear from Senate, what we hear from COP, and to relay it with the rest of the E-Board up to the administration. So what I would like to do, Brown.
Regardless of substance, I think you're right, Anthony. John Solak has the best stage presence of anybody on the panel.
He just knows how to sell himself. I think that's something that makes him stand out.
To make that wider is have one.
He's currently sitting near the bottom of the pack in our Griffin poll, but I expect to see that change in the next couple of days based on this debate performance.
I'm interested to see how it does change over this debate performance, because there's definitely some winners here.
Could come up and tell me about a concern they have that maybe they don't know a senator and they could tell me about. That's what I would do.
I also think it's interesting that John Solak was the first one that's mentioned working with the rest of the executive board.
Kind of like what John mentions, the way that
Worthy insight from a 3-year executive vice president.
Like a reverse psychedelic Led Zeppelin cover. Whereas the student body, you're that spectrum of light, and it passes through myself, that prism, and it's just this beam of white light. And that's going right.
I'm loving the analogy.
It's about capturing the collective mind of the student body. One of the things that I would really like to do as president would be meeting with clubs that I am not particularly familiar with. Just attend a general body meeting, hear what it is that...
This speaks back to a couple years ago when I was a freshman. We used to have President's Fireside Chats over in Grubb Fireside Lounge, and the club leaders were invited there to meet with the President of the Undergraduate Student Association. So that was kind of one of the original old styles of having the Council of Presidents in a very unrestricted, unstructured manner.
Now, how well attended were those events typically, Anthony? Sounds like they came a little bit before my time.
Not that many. It kind of depended on the topic. If there was a contentious topic, you saw that room full. However, if there was one just starting the year off, it was not so much a highly attended event.
Perhaps to be expected, but maybe the sort of thing that Neil Savoy's talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
I've been on the student body or student government for 2 years. I've served as president of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity for a year. I've also served as social chair to that fraternity as well. I've been the captain and mock trial coordinator of the Canisius College mock trial team, and I've served on 3 college committees in my first 3 years here. I know what it takes to get the job done on day one. I know who to talk to. I know who to go to if you need anything done. If you need something from facilities, you talk to Thompson and Nelly. If you need something from public safety, you go to Gary Everett. If you need something from the Dean of Students office, you go to Dr. Mangione. These are the things that you need to have coming in on day one, and you need to be dedicated to your students. Now, the role of the president, the single role, no bridges, no light, no stairway to heaven, it is being a representation of the student opinion on campus, and that is it. That is all you need to do. You need to be in touch with the student opinion on every issue, and that includes getting out and talking to people, and getting out from behind the table and actually talking to people. When I went around collecting signatures, talking to people was one of the most enlightening experiences I've ever had here at Canisius. We've got some great ideas out there, and we've got some great opinions, and that's something that the president needs to reflect.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses. Now, I originally wanted to ask a question if you could name all the VPs of the administration, but I felt that it wouldn't work in this format if we had a different format. It would work, but I also didn't want to...
It'd be interesting to see how many of them could actually name those VPs.
Sure, you would ask one at a time, something along those lines. What would be really interesting is that several of them are currently vacant, and so I'd like to see who'd be aware of that.
And I wonder if they knew if they did have an interim VP in them.
Referring to someone along the line of a Rick Wall.
Correct.
Attend Senate, hold e-board meetings, and also 12 office hours. While, thank you, but nobody asked me.
Searing indignation from President Wilkinson. The crowd's reacting well.
If you remember from President Wilkinson's debate, he did use a similar tactic then.
Just to go back on that, Brock, that's something that a president should be doing, and I really am inspired by that. A president should be sitting on all these different committees and should be talking to this many students and should be this involved in campus, because that's how you get the student ID. That's how you get the student consensus of how they feel about Canisius. So I am really inspired by that.
If anyone wants to give Brock a pat on the back, you can do so after. I'm going to move on to the next question. We will have time for that at the end.
Aidan Ryan laying down the law.
He did say he would, so I'm very pleased to see that in this debate.
This is going to start with you, Sydnie. Everyone, so far all of the candidates tonight have spoken about representing the student opinion and being able to ascertain that opinion and then to bring that to the administration. But we do elect you to lead, and that means to know what's best for us even when we don't. And as
yes, the tough question in my opinion.
You have to take a lot of flack from students and from the administration when you make unpopular decisions. So how are you going to deal with
And the Griffin.
I was about to say, certainly something I can relate to as a Griffin editor.
Further, the new Griffin Insiders also makes a big difference.
As a leader, everyone, if anyone is going to be a leader or applying to be a leader or getting elected to be a leader, that should be expected, that you are going to rock the boat. You are not going to make it that easy for yourself or others, because obviously as a leader you have to make the best decision for everyone. I have held a lot of leadership positions before, and I'm very comfortable with handling those types of situations, and especially with adults. Most of my leadership positions are through, I work at the Autism Research here at Canisius, and I really work with a lot of adults and teachers where I teach them how to teach autistic kids, and it's a lot of conflicts between myself and them. So I'm very amped to kind of handle that and make the light out of that, instead of taking the argument as this is what you're doing wrong, thank you, I guess we're not friends. I'd rather say, hey, this is what we're doing wrong, how can we fix it together? So I'm very big on collaborative work.
We actually have a current senior senator here in the room, Jessica Bliss, who it's her first year on Senate, or second year on Senate, I'm sorry, she was elected her junior year. Ms. Bliss, how do you feel about the presidential debate so far?
Hi, everyone. Personally, I am very curious about this debate. The questions that they're asking are usually the same ones, and I'm not saying that, every person's going to have the same answer. What I mean is that these are all questions that obviously need change. The school needs to change. Everything needs to get better. But the way that they're going about it, they're not talking about what specifically is going to change. What is their own way of changing the school? So when they were talking about student athletes, the gap between non-athletes and athletes, yes, it needs to change. They made the question seem like that, is there a change that needs to be done or not? But what specifically are the candidates going to do in order to make that change? And for me, I'm getting a little bit of a struggle with it, but I think they're getting much better with it as well.
I think the dynamic you're speaking to is pretty widely felt, and it's one that I certainly have been very frustrated by as the guy who's been covering this race and the guy who covers USA for the Griffin. I think it's easy for these candidates to get lost in abstraction. I was expecting that a lot of them were going to be sitting on, platforms or policy agendas until tonight, and then the dynamics of the race would really change, but that hasn't really taken place, at least so far. And so I think in a situation like that, you look for the dynamic personality to be the winner.
And then if I have a conviction, I'm going to stand by it. I'm ready to listen to another opinion, but I can't give in to public pressure over something that I feel is really wrong for the student body and that is ultimately going to hurt us. It can be tough, but it's to represent the student body. It's like a parent. Like, you have to know what's best for them, even if they don't. Not to patronize. The student body we're a smart group of kids, but sometimes you have to do something that they aren't going to like. But it's for their best. It's for the best.
The role of the president is to be, as we've said and as I've stated, is to be the sole executor of the student opinion on campus, and that requires being in touch with the student opinion. Now, sometimes there are issues when you're going to have an affront with the student opinion, and you're going to have to do something that's unpopular.
Claire, it's interesting. I hear the subject pronoun my or I very often, but you don't hear a lot about collaboration.
I think that's interesting. I think a lot of the candidates haven't really talked about how they would relate with other executives on different boards, and I think that's extremely important, and that's kind of been lacking in this debate. I think all these candidates have very similar and general answers on things, but because they're all so similar, you're looking for a way to stand out. You're not looking for the same ambiguity that you're getting from the one who spoke before. And I think that they might be missing a chance to stand out with specifics on how to work with people and how to collaborate, and I really think that's missing.
Because of the work that I did on this issue, we no longer have to pay those fees associated with that. Then we have to give credit to Dr. Terry Jones for helping us out with that. But had it not been brought to light, and that decision to go on that was very unpopular, as it was hard to keep pushing through those things. When you're the president, you have to make decisions that are the right decisions for the student body, and that's what I'll do as president. I think that's something, to really keep an eye on here is that as presidents, we're not here to do what's popular all the time. Obviously, the student voice is very important, and that is something that we take in mind very seriously. But at the end of the day, we have an entire school to look out for as a liaison to the administration. And popularity, for me, we need to focus on what's right to do instead of what's the easiest choice or what's the most popular choice. In Senate, it's kind of clear that there's a little bit of self-interest represented there. And as president, as president of C-Block alone, it's been difficult to see those self-interests represented. And, the measure of a leader isn't necessarily by doing what's popular all the time. We have a leader right now in the United States of America who does a lot of unpopular things. But how well you care for the people you represent is way more important.
All right, thank you for your responses. Now I'd like to open it up to audience questions as we're getting closer to close of this evening. I'd like to open it for 5, if we have 5 takers out there. I'll come visit you.
Gabe Chen, who was one of several sponsors of the resolution in the Council of Presidents asking Senate to reconsider their $181,000 appropriation, with the first question.
Hey, he's been away for a year. How can he be in touch with our interests? And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
That's a great question. I'm interested to see how he responds.
It's the question of his campaign.
When I started Canisius as a freshman, I hit the ground running and was very involved. And I was again my sophomore year. And then that time I became very familiar with the way that the student government operated as well as the way that clubs had to operate. In my time abroad, I've definitely experienced what I think is what most Canisius students are experiencing. And that's not feeling informed about what's going on with their student government. Everything that I've been learning about what's going on campus has not been directly from these organizations. It's been through newspapers like...
I think it's interesting to point out that Neil is a commuter, and it's kind of funny this question is raised because it's often brought up, how can he be completely informed on issues? He doesn't live here, and now he's abroad. But I think because he did not start off as a resident, he commutes. He's got the kind of knowledge to keep involved and keep aware of issues, even though he's not here all the time. And I think that's a strength for Neil. He may be gone, but he writes for the Griffin, and he stays involved, and I think that's really important.
And in that way, I'll be able to better represent the Canisius student body when working with the administration. I can understand that people will think, oh, how can he possibly know what's going on? But I've stayed informed. I do have a good idea as to what's been going on. And if I can do that and push it away, believe me, I'll know what's going on when I'm on campus.
Thank you. Next audience question.
From Dylan Ruda, current junior senator, candidate for Business and Finance Vice President.
Does the idea of almost, I hate to say it, but over-representation concern you? Having so many people be in a voting body where nothing can be accomplished, where 100+ people manage a budget that the Finance Committee reviews for about 18 hours a semester? Does that concern anyone here? I'm just wondering.
If I may, Dylan, thank you for your question. I personally don't think...
Current Business and Finance Vice President Danielle Giancarlo, pretty enthusiastic about the points Dylan raised.
I think that's because they do seem to be a very similar mindset.
As far as finance committee is concerned, that's a huge issue right now. Club leaders are very aware and very in tune with what's going on with the budget process here.
You know, I do wonder if there's some sort of shared governance that we can come up with that involves the council presidents and finance committee of the Senate.
And that's something that I want to push forward as president of the Undergraduate Student Association. Each club should be able to do the things it needs to publish its message to the student body here to create a conducive learning environment for all students.
Let me interject here. I think Mr. Ruda is concerned, as I'm sure many people are, that if we give governance powers to the Council of Presidents, the legislative process as a whole will be slowed down and hindered. Do you share those concerns? Do you have any ways that you might alleviate it?
If I may, I think that the right way to do it is just do it incrementally. It's a fundamental part of business, marginal costs. And I think that is the way that if you want to change the way that this whole government setup works, we do it in small bits and small chunks, and so we can find the most efficient way to run it.
As a response to that, I think students here, if they're concerned about something, they don't care how long it takes to get it right, just as long as we get it right. And that's something that I certainly echo.
I do think when it comes to club budgets, they want it done right, but very quickly. And I do kind of see what Dylan is getting at, that if you slow down the process, it might become too slow for the clubs and almost self-destruct upon itself.
It's a recurrent theme that's raised by club leaders throughout the Council of Presidents. It's going to speak a lot to the way that the appropriations process is going to have to be streamlined going forward. I know Danielle Giancarlo had some good ideas, particularly with regard to putting the budgets online and putting a lot of that process on collegiate link, but still obviously more work needs to be done as reflected by their concerns.
The power over budgets to council presidents needs to be done, as has been said, in steps. One of the ways that I think could work.
I do wonder if you were to give the power of finances over to the council presidents, what does that mean for the vice president of business and finance? Where does their alliance going to fall then?
You know, there's all kinds of dangerous notions that come along with that proposal, and that's why I think that all these candidates needs to think four of these 5 candidates need to think very seriously about what they're proposing for the Council of Presidents.
I agree. I do hope that if this does continue, and that is what a path they do choose to take, I hope that they sit down and they do spend a lot of time to develop it. We did sit down. We spent at least the whole year, one whole year, planning the council presidents from top to bottom. So I do think that any big change is going to take time.
I wonder, Anthony, if you haven't created a monster.
So we need to ensure that it's done efficiently. So while there are clearly a lot of representatives, if we can somehow group them together so that they can speak for their own group's interests rather than several groups' individual interests. We have 86 clubs, active clubs right now. Then you can make it more efficient.
I believe Ms. Perkins next, and then Mr. Rutigliano has had a change of heart. Also, I ask the candidates to limit these responses to audience questions to 1 minute.
Right now, I hear the clubs to the president's the club's main problem is their budgets. And I believe that with the vice president of business and finance and clubs, I think they should start a lot earlier. We should start working on budgets towards the end of the semester and start working over the summer. If some students feel like they need to talk about their budget or kind of discuss their budget with the VP of business and finance, then they should. If they're fine with just submitting their budget and letting it be handled just like that through paper, then that's fine. But I feel like if a club feels like they need to speak this through because they feel like their club is so much more passionate or their members need this money just to have the face-to-face contact over the summer or towards the end of the semester, just so that the VP of Business and Finance and the club member and the club president can have a face-to-face encounter so they can hear the passion, they can hear the ideas, they can hear the inspiration behind the ideas.
I personally think that we need to change the budget process a little bit, maybe tweak it. We'll do it incrementally if we have to. Right now, you get your budget back. If you're a club leader, you sit in these chairs on a dreary Saturday in September, and you spend all day, and then you get your budget back. An issue that we are absolutely having is there's no transparency with the budget process. People receive their budgets. Clubs receive their budgets, and they don't know why they aren't being allowed.
Ms. Giancarlo not receiving criticism from Mr. Rutigliano, well, it appears.
No, I would agree with that. I do wonder once again if there is some sort of a compromise that we can move the finance committee to operate in a different way, such as maybe an open forum where those decisions are made.
I think the general consensus is that the closed-door meeting model will be ending in the near future.
I would agree.
Is that correct, Brock?
You wonder though how much that proposal might compromise the budget process. It's easy to say yes to somebody when they're in the room with you.
Right, and that's what makes me fearful about giving it to the council of presidents. When you have that many clubs, it's easy to all of a sudden have your opinion swayed.
And you know what? And this is one of the reasons I think that Danielle has done a good job this year. You need a ruthless accountant to be on your executive board. And this is what Joe was talking about. We need to be a little bit more risky with the money. No, I don't think that's a good strategy, and that's why I'm glad that there are people who can sit down in a room and talk about this as accountants.
Well, and I think that's the brilliance behind having the student government be set up with multiple vice presidents, because they all have their own forte, and they can bring that in, and that's what makes it a great group of people.
So we've heard a lot of different things from you candidates tonight, and I'd just like to ask each and every one of you the final word of your campaign. I just want to hear in a single phrase with a minute explanation afterwards one thing that summarizes your campaign. I've heard a lot of different things from you guys, a lot of great ideas, but I want to know what you guys are running on.
Miss Bliss, what she would like to interject one more time.
Thank you, Anthony. So Eric's question, I absolutely loved. I was actually sitting down there with him before I came up here to join the lovely people of Griffin TV. And for us, we just kept saying, what is their platform? What is the one thing that they want to change more than anything? And it just seemed like that the questions that are being asked are constantly the same thing over and over and over again, just as I stated before. But Eric wants to know, what is the one thing that is going to stand you apart from all the other candidates? And I think this is where we're going to see a huge change in the debate. We're going to see everyone's true colors come out and essentially what they want best for this school.
Think about what kind of president I want to be. The phrase that comes to mind is one that's dedicated to the student interest. And that's something that's tantamount to anything else that I would ever do as president. I'm dedicated to serving the students. I've served 2 years on the Undergraduate Student Association. I've been very active on this campus. I'm an orientation leader. I've run with the mock trial team. I've run with the academic college committees here on campus. And I really have a dedication to serve the students and to get the job done right. And that's why I want to be your next president of the Undergraduate Student Association.
My slogan is, it was Bentonite, where we stand with you, but I stand with you. Truly, I know everyone says leaders stand from behind, and I really do agree with that. I feel like leaders definitely do need to talk to people that they're leading.
This goes back to a blog post that I posted last year regarding student leadership and how leaders eat last, and that's a great point that she does make.
With the student body and standing with the student athletes and standing with the student
A salient motto from the National Jesuit Student Leadership Conference, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was.
The phrase that I would say that comes to mind, I mentioned it to Aidan, Ryan, and the Griffin when I mentioned that I was going to come out and race. Students for others, and that's all that matters. At the end of the day, we need to be students that are selfless, hands down, every single one of us. We have students here that are fantastic students, regardless. Everybody's a fantastic student that goes to school here. However, our outreach and really just our attitude, I think, has been lost. And there's a lot of ways in which we can redeem that. And I think through outreach, through transparency, through building a community that we want to be a part of is the way to go. And, most importantly, remember that you love Canisius. Even when it's hard, Canisius is always there for you.
I think Joe speaks to a great point that we all have to remember what we fell in love with Canisius for, and then share that with others and help them define their love in Canisius, especially those freshmen.
A nice moment he's had in this debate so far.
Culture at Canisius that has such pride that it's spilling out of the hallways. That involves working with, like I said, council presidents so that we're seeing greater representation in decisions that affect the students at Canisius. It's working to foster greater pride in our athletics, which has been lacking, but has been definitely been improving a lot this year from what I've been reading. It's about creating a culture that really loves this school, because a lot of us really do, and we want everyone to love it just as much, if not more, than we already do.
All right, thank you.
Hello, candidates. I've had the pleasure of live tweeting this debate, and there's been my name is Jesse Petto. I've had the pleasure of live tweeting this debate, and there's been a lot of ruffling the feathers of Canisius on Twitter. And so there have been a couple of questions. I'm going to try to blend them all together. And so if each of you could answer, and one requirement posed by Keith Rosso was to not use any buzzwords, which is going to be hard for me to tweet about because that's what Twitter is. But
interesting to see Twitter playing a role in this debate now.
Interesting to see him use the phrase buzzwords. You hear things like communications, transparency that have featured recurrently in this debate.
From Dustin, he wants to know, I do plan to work with a whole new e-board. So there's a whole new set of people, lots of new sets of personalities. None of them have experience in this exact position, and you're leading all of them. So without using any buzzwords, please explain.
That's a great question coming out of an executive board with 3 veteran members.
And absolutely the most exciting part of the selection.
Well, yeah, Jesse, you're going to have to keep me on track with the buzzwords here, so I'll do my best. I've run into the same situation last year. I took over Phi Alpha Delta as the president with an entirely new executive board, and together in collaboration is a buzzword. Working with them has been a tremendous experience to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And after knowing that, I know what does work. And the one buzzword that I'm going to use, even though I was told not to, but it's absolutely necessary, is communication between everyone on the executive board.
I want that buzzword stricken from the record.
Talk to each other. That's what you need to do. You need to all be on the same page. You need to all be on the same message.
Fighting buzzwords with more buzzwords. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I'm really excited that we have our own all-new executive board coming in because we can charter our own recipe for success here at Canisius.
And I think that does speak to the college theme of exploring and discovery.
I think that there's proof in the fact that I have worked with C-Block and the group of kids we have this year. If you go to any basketball games, really any athletic events, and you've got a good crowd there, chances are they're all freshmen. And not once did I make a trip to a high school last year and, what was that? Was that a buzzword? Why are you looking at me? Okay, sorry. Not once did I go recruit a member for C-Block last year. So that is my executive board. Everybody that's at those games is people I need to work with and really get to know very quickly so that we're in tune with each other and we provide I'm trying not to use a buzzword. Try and create a crowd that's enthusiastic and really, really good. I think we've done that this year.
I'm sorry. The audio isn't perfect. Can someone articulately state what the question was?
Yeah, there's somebody out here in the audience who can do that.
How you doing?
Brock apparently not confident in his ability to articulately state the question.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We need to know your leadership style. How are you going to work with a new e-board when there's all new people in new positions?
Okay.
And you can't use any buzzwords, so I can't be able to tweet about it, basically. You got to use a long explanation without any big buzzwords that are the catchphrases of your statement. We want to hear a new way to say it.
Okay.
It's the cinnamon challenge.
Someone that's very easy to work with. I think that anyone that has worked with me can say that it was a pleasurable experience and that I worked to get the job done, but I'm not too serious in a way where you don't want to work with me or something. And that with a new e-board, I think that we're all really excited to bring a lot of change to Canisius, and that with that excitement and that sort of to working on Canisius, that we'll be ready to work together and that we'll be working efficiently to see those changes through.
I would call my style guided exploration. I believe that people who are elected to the e-board are elected. Is that the buzzword? It's guided discovery. Well, my point to that is that people are elected because someone saw a capacity within them to do something really well. And so I believe as a leader, you need to just give them the tools that they need to succeed, and then let them do the work. Check up on them, but let them do what they were elected in the position.
Okay, so for me, this is going to be completely different because I've never been on Senate before. So I think this is a buzzword, but peacefully changing together, moving together. The fact that every single one of us is going to be a new member is going to bring change regardless.
It's not unusual. When I was a freshman, Vice President Business and Finance Damian Morris was never on Senate. My sophomore year, who was it my sophomore year? Well, last year, Brian Almendinger, and this year, Christina Cicerano. So we definitely have seen people that have never been on Senate before have some sort of experience and take their position in their own direction.
Do you think that the challenge that presents is insurmountable? Do you think people can still do a good job?
I do think they can do a good job, and I think they do bring a different perspective than the people that are in Senate.
just making Senate what it is going to be together.
All right, and for the last question of the evening, I happen to be sitting here with 3 women's lacrosse players, and they're here to just ask a question.
So my name's Kroese. I'm a senior here, and as Rox said, I play on the women's lacrosse team. A lot of the talk tonight's been about bridging the gap between athletes and students, and I agree it is a two-way street. But how exactly is this bridge going to be fixed, I guess? And I guess, Andy, I know you serve as president of Phi Alpha Delta, and from an athlete's perspective, like I've tried to get involved with clubs on campus, and it's hard to like make meetings or do community service or try and run for an e-board spot. Of the time commitment, are these club leaders, or as president, are you guys willing to maybe talk to these leaders and so flexibilities can be made? Or I'm just more wondering how this gap will be bridged.
Thank you very much for your question, and I certainly understand that the time constraints and like you said, it is a two-way street for student athletes here. You have spent a lot of time on the road or working out, and that's without question, and we appreciate your dedication to your study as well as your sport. It absolutely is a two-way street, and like I said right when we first began here, we need to bridge the gap that, strike that phrase for the rest of the night, but we need to occupy the space between the student athletes and the student body here at Canisius. Now, the first point that, like I said, we need to give the student athletes as well as the students the space so that they can actually break that bond. I mean, I can't hold anyone's feet to the fire and make them bridge that gap. They have to do it on their own. And
Hi, Jess back here again. So Andy's talking about, the space that there is between the athletes and the students. Now, they were also talking about earlier maybe having an event where the athletes or a certain team would be able to go and do a meet and greet with the students of Canisius. This has actually been done before, and I remember specifically twice, and I believe it was my sophomore year here at Canisius, that the men's basketball team did a meet and greet when Coach Prado was still here, who was a wonderful man. We miss him dearly. They had the basketball players do different kinds of competition with the students, and about 100 people came, and it was very fun and active, but it was a little awkward. The next time that they did it was through the hockey team, I believe was last year, and they did a meet and greet right before one of the basketball games with the hockey team. And again, I heard that it was a good event and everyone really liked it, but it was still very awkward because all the athletes just centered around each other. They didn't really break out of their shells. They didn't go around and actually talk to students and say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I play forward on the hockey team. What's yours? What do you like about Canisius? And really get that connection between the two. So I think the challenge that's right now is that how are you going to be able to make the athletes break away from this comfort zone to talk to the students? Because obviously the students constantly keep hearing about these names. They keep going back and forth about it. But how are you going to make the athletes break that barrier zone? We can take care of the students, but I feel it's up to the coaches and the team managers to be able to go and tell their team members and their athletes, these people want to talk to you for a specific reason. You need to go out there and you need to go talk to them. You never know what kind of connection you're going to be able to make or an opportunity you may get from it.
Activities at orientation, activities at the bonfire should change that. Also, another thing is, I think dorm storming is big. We should have athletes.
I do wonder if Joe has a little bit of expertise in this area, being the C-Block president. I wonder what he would bring to the table that the others cannot.
He's turned out a lot of fans for these games. I've been proud to be beside him, but I wonder, about causality. I wonder how much of that is actually attributable to his leadership of C-Block.
Bridging the gap between the athletes and the students. But I think obviously that's what we've all been saying is the communication needs to be better. It needs to be a better flow between communication between the athletes and the students. As first, we're all students, number one. And I feel that within, I know we said earlier with library, opening the library longer hours so that athletes and students can mingle longer, can talk to each other longer, because I know events, it's always going to be hard to schedule something that all athletes can attend, that all students can attend, without having some discrepancy. So I think having a form of communication over things that we are common, that we have in common, such as our academics and such as Canisius College as a whole, will bridge that gap a lot better. So just having more communication between student athletes through events and through academic facilities.
So not to keep, maybe we should make a two-way street, we should take that off the list as well. But on that point, I think it's easy for us in student government to see this the gym is closed and it's only for athletes, but I would love to get your perspective. I was an athlete in high school, but I mean, how much more insight does that give me into the experience of a collegiate athlete? So what I would do would be to sit down with people who feel strongly about that issue on the sides of the athletes and say, look, this is what's going on. And then part two is let's find a way to fix that. That's what I would do.
I think part of the reason that we have this gap that I keep talking about is that there's a conflict in what athletes need to be doing and what everyone else is doing. And part of that I think could be most easily addressed through programming, is to see that when there's a big game on campus, we don't have conflicting events that are keeping us from going and supporting our athletes. And then when we have big campus traditions that we're, not to do it around athletics, but it's easier for us to plan a program around that than for them to change their game, let's be honest. And to ensure that we're promoting, campus traditions where we can all come together and intermingle with one another. It's unrealistic to say that, an athlete that's dedicating so much time to what they're doing, and it's awesome that they're doing it, they may not be able to get as involved as other people may be, but that doesn't mean that we can't be a stronger, more unified community. And I think that you can really see that addressed most efficiently and first and foremost through our programming.
Well, that's all for the audience questions. We do now allow our candidates each a closing statement. According to Mr. Anthony Kroese's rules, they have 3 minutes, but if you want to take 30 seconds, you might win some votes. We'll start with Mr. Plewinski.
Under a table of 5, 3 minutes takes a very long time.
Yeah, certainly they have been verbose and quite generous in the time allocations that the moderators have given them. And neither Aidan nor Brock has been particularly stringent in enforcing the time limits.
Brock, you have the deepest voice I know. It doesn't, I can't hear it so well. To close, some things that I didn't get to address during the debate would be that, for instance, when I talk about programming, I'd really like to see us promote more our campus traditions and see other traditions evolve on campus. I know this year we explored Fall Fest. I think that another thing too is that we have Mr. Canisius and it's a great thing, but we exclude over half of the student population in a tradition like that. We should be having a Miss Canisius too. I'm sure the ladies would agree.
Right now, and Neil Savoy.
He is, that's right, he is last year's winner of the Mr. Canisius competition, and I am pleased to be sitting to the immediate left of one of this year's competitors, Mr. Kroese, representing the Undergraduate Student Association.
It is an interesting fact to think that we're going to be in here in less than a month, actually.
Wait, what's the date exactly?
March 29th.
March 29th.
The seniors being able to have a beer or, a bar on campus, which may be a little more far off, but it's something to look into. Lastly, I just want to say that if you love this school, you're a club leader, if you work with clubs, if you want to see changes that benefit you as a part of the Canisius community, I'm the candidate for you. I'm committed to Canisius. I love this school, and I want to make sure that it's serving you to the best of its ability. As president, I'm a servant. I'm not some high guy, of all of you. I'm your most humble servant, doing what you want done, although I may object to some little, but I'll tell you why. And then I just want to make sure.
Sitting above all of us, but good point.
Claire, as you are so fond of observing, it really is all about the attitude.
Definitely, all about the attitude.
And the hair. And the hair.
Yeah, everybody give
for appearing so late on this panel.
It is. By now it's got to be about 4 o'clock, I would assume.
At least.
You know, Kevin, I think that this closing statement really sums up exactly what they're going to do. So I think this is a great opportunity for them to make their closing splash.
Perhaps we should let them proceed uninterrupted.
Now tonight I open with asking you to listen to what we said, to think about which one of us is going to best serve you, and to engage in the conversation. And I appreciate everyone who did engage. We tackled some very serious issues facing Canisius here tonight. Now you have a decision to make, and there's 5 of us here. You have a decision to make who you vote for and who you want to be the face of Canisius for the next year. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the face that Canisius needs to move forward in the right direction next year. Through my pillars of investing in the student, representing the student voice, and developing the student life, I can be the leader that Canisius needs. I can be the leader that will guide you through and make changes to the campus that we desperately need. I can be the leader that you can trust. On Monday, the polls are going to open, and you're going to have 5 decisions to make. On Monday, when you're looking at that screen, I want you to think about what was said here tonight. I want you to think about all that I can do for you. And I want you to engage in your sole act of democracy here at campus. And I ask that you cast your vote for me, Andrew Plewinski, for student body president. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great evening.
All right, everybody. You've heard the...
But Neil's sitting on the screen from the torso up. I wonder if he's wearing pants.
You know, I did think that. I do wonder if he's wearing shorts or boxers or who knows what he's wearing.
I almost want to ask him to stand up. Well, perhaps not.
Perhaps not.
However, remember why you're here. At the end of the day, if you don't enjoy it here, if you don't think that your leader is someone that you think is doing a good job, you have a voice. Use it next Monday through Thursday. Go vote. It's important. There are people in the world that can't vote, and regardless of who you vote for, it's much needed. Also, place value in your voice. Come to Senate meetings. I talked to a couple of people, maybe one of them's in the audience tonight, did not know that Senate meetings were open to the public. Go to the meetings. Be that voice. There are some people, I'm sure there are a lot of people here that agree with you. And lastly, I love Canisius dearly. I believe that I am the leader that Canisius will seek. The question is, will you vote for me?
It's like a metaphor.
Like you said before me, all of these candidates are brilliant in all their ideas and all their great things that they see for Canisius in the future. And just listening to them has kind of changed the way I thought about how I was going to run and how I was going to be president. And just having this thought has made me realize just how fit to be president I am, because I'm willing to listen to all these different things and I'm willing to let it change the way I see certain things. If you really want a leader that's going to listen to you, you should actually get someone that's going to listen to you. And all these candidates are going to listen to you. But just listen, like Aidan said, and think, and then get engaged in what you heard and what you think and what you know about these candidates and how you've seen us walking around campus and in classes and just anywhere you've seen us. So just take your time, think about exactly what you want in Canisius and who you want a leader and that and everything. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to remind you I'm a man of my word. I'll stay behind the podium as the last speaker tonight. I'd like to end by just saying that leaders do more than make goals. They envision the future, and they mold the present to make that vision into a reality. Whether it's myself or any of the other very highly qualified candidates that are here or with us in spirit, I'd like to see a visionary take over the Undergraduate Student Association. From RTC to Senate, I had the experience to understand and overcome challenges that a large organization might face. But what we really require is the fusion of many voices from the student body and ensuring that USA functions as one cohesive unit. You know, Canisius has the opportunity to foster a unique sense of identity that unites not just the students, but the staff and the faculty and all the administration. These titles that we give people, you know, they shouldn't be silos for us. And we all serve an integral element to this campus. And we all share a common ethos that comes and eventually shapes who we are. You know, and making this vision a reality is going to require quite a bit of in both directions, both up to the administration and out to the student body. You know, from innovating programming on campus to developing policy changes, we can't be afraid as a governmental system to reach outside of our comfort zones, change the paradigms that we find ourselves entangled in. And hopefully by doing so, we can, as one Canisius, move forward together. Thank you.
Right now, but a buzzword counter would have been great for this event.
I think I'll go back.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. As you know, or should know, voting is going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the 10th through the 13th. Thursday too, or Thursday. And we have a very qualified pool of candidates here. And I don't know if those are the questions we were asking, but they all seem very comfortable up here, and they all had answers for them. And I think they deserve a round of applause for that. And even though it's a little sad handing over the keys, the key, and maybe.
And the presidential debate is where one of his last public speeches is going to be given.
I think it's promising for next year.
Shake hands and hug them, whoever becomes the next president of the Undergraduate Student Association. Thank you.
I'm not going to ask you to clap again, but I do want to say you have a wide variety of approaches to the job, a wide variety of skill sets, but I can say with sincerity that these are all men and women with and for others. What Brock and I want is the same thing that I'm sure all these candidates want, and that is a record voting turnout this coming week. You guys are the die-hard students. You're the engaged ones, or maybe you're the ones that didn't have that class. So I want you all to go and agitate your friends, get them to come out, and I really want to see a record turnout. So.
From last election.
You know, in that I think we are all in total agreement. Hi folks, I'm Kevin Daley, Opinion Editor, joined by Executive Vice President Anthony Kroese of the Undergraduate Student Association and Griffin Insiders anchor Claire Dirrigl. We're here inside Montante, where this evening's candidates panel and debate has just ended. In the first hour, candidates for the various vice presidencies were allotted a few minutes to speak their part. The second hour featured a long town hall forum with all 5 presidential candidates. Neil Savoy is Skyping in from Spain. It was the first time he was able to speak to voters at any length about his campaign. Anthony, I want to ask you, were there any standouts for you tonight?
For me, at least in the stage presence category, I do have to give it to John Solak. John Solak definitely, he started off right off the bat very strong. He came out there, he got out from behind the podium and addressed the people. And I think he carried that on throughout the night, right up till his closing remarks.
Yeah, and you know, he kept hitting home this form over function motto, a very salient slogan for the junior senator and biology major, a point he also repeatedly visited throughout the evening. Claire, I want to pose the same question to you. Is there anybody who stood out to you during tonight's conversation?
Actually, there was. I'm going to step away from presidents for a minute and talk about Emma Carberry. I was really blown away by her. She took to the podium. She didn't have notes. She was engaged with the audience, and she had a really defined 3-step plan. She knew what she wanted to accomplish, and she had ways that I thought were tangible to do it. I think all these candidates, a lot of them were great, but there was a lot of vagueness and ambiguity in what they planned to do, and Emma really stood out with her plan.
Yeah, you touch on this notion of vagueness that sort of was a recurrent theme tonight. We actually fielded a question from Keith Rosso via Jesse Prido, wondering whether or not the candidates could talk about their platform in a cohesive and comprehensive way without using what he called buzzwords. I'm assuming he meant words like transparency, communication, collaboration, etc., etc.
Innovative. Yeah, I think that is very difficult, especially when you're running for president, because you don't know who your vice presidents are. And I do think that does affect a lot of what your plans for the year are. But I do agree. You would think there'd be some more plans. I think the best plan we've heard is one that is very difficult. The Chipotle comment is really the most clear-cut thing that we did here, exactly what we'd like to see on campus. So I do wish that there would be a little bit more clear-cut plans.
For the record, the Chipotle comment you're referring to, offered by Sydnie Perkins, currently a candidate for president, in reference to a remark that President Wilkinson made in passing at Tuesday night's Council of Presidents meeting, suggesting that there may be another food venue possibly in Canisius' future in the form of Chipotle. Obviously a conversation that's just in its exploratory phase, can't speak to its seriousness. Also just want to take a moment to urge my co-anchors to be cautious. There's a bat flying around in close proximity to us, so if at any moment we throw ourselves off the balcony, please bear with us. Much too close. Yes, I agree. What also struck me about tonight was that it seemed that this proceeding was reasonably well attended, but perhaps it's not been on par with recent years.
I do think moving it off of the main campus in Regis and moving it to Montante may have affected that a little bit. I was a little afraid, though, of keeping it in Regis, that we might end up filling up all of Regis when you have 5 candidates and so many open positions for, at least no incumbents for any of the other vice president positions.
Certainly has been true the past couple of years. Claire, I want to ask you, we saw throughout the evening a couple candidates take what appeared to be veiled shots at Mr. Savoy, ostensibly because he's running a campaign in abstention. I'm wondering what your reaction was to that.
I don't know about the shots. I mean, they were very subtle. I think we picked up on them at least.
Sure.
There were a couple apologies to Neil. I didn't really get the context of those. I was kind of looking for what's going on. I think that some students, we had Gabe Chen, who asked a question on behalf of other students about Neil isn't here. Can he really be a good candidate for this? And I think Neil definitely didn't hear those remarks. I'm sure if he did, he would have like to address them. I think that being abroad does pose a little bit of a problem for him. And actually in his campaigning, I think he did a really great job with his pamphlets and saying, I'm in Spain, so how am I still a good candidate? He knows that this is a problem, and he went out of his way to, just kind of bring that to the forefront and address his weakness.
Kevin, the 2010-2011 president of the Undergraduate Student Association, Caitlin Eldridge, she won actually while she was abroad in Ireland. So this isn't something that's unusual.
No kidding. Well, my whole thought on that was, if in fact these were shots that were being taken at Neil, then you should just take the shot. The fact that there was some ambiguity there that could be construed that way sort of speaks to a tepidness or a sort of milquetoast attitude that a candidate might have, which I just think is totally inadvisable. I want to visit another recurrent theme throughout tonight's panel, and that was that the Council of Presidents came up a number of times. Anthony, as Executive Vice President, you chartered the Council of Presidents. I'm wondering if you thought the vision articulated by 4 of the 5 candidates is something that's appropriate for the Council of Presidents.
I think that it's something that could be explored, but as I was telling Kevin earlier, it did take a year to develop the whole Council of Presidents, and this is something that's going to take a long time to revisit. It's something that the research is going to have to be done. I do fear about turning the Council of Presidents into a second House of Representatives style body and turning Canisius into a bicameral student government. We are very small, and somewhere out west where you might have 30,000 students, that's something that is definitely a question that we would be looking at. But here, I don't know if it's necessary.
Yeah, you use this phrase bicameral, and there was suggestions from 4 of the 5 candidates that should be the arrangement. Neil Savoy was the lone dissenter in that. Some interesting suggestions from John Solak, for example, who wondered that if the Council of Presidents passed a resolution in unanimity, whether or not that could constitute a de facto motion within the Undergraduate Student Association. Certainly, something perhaps worth exploring.
And it's definitely a possibility. As it currently stands, if we were to get 350 signatures, that is a motion in the Undergraduate Student Association Senate meeting.
Now, Claire, I want to ask you, we learned earlier today that Van Stinson, currently diversity chair and candidate for executive vice president, will not appear on the ballot as of this Monday. He fell just 1 signature short of the signatures required for ballot access. I'm wondering if you think that's going to affect the way that Sydnie Perkins has been presenting herself to the student body. She's been running on a ticket with Mr. Stinson and now suddenly has no running mate.
Actually, I have a class with Sydnie, and she came in and she was campaigning, and she was running on the fact that she was a part of one of the first tickets in really recent Canisius history. I think that she did a good job tonight of kind of distancing herself from that. There was no ticket talk. Had he been able to become on the ballot, I mean, her whole strategy tonight may have been different. I don't know if that necessarily hurt her, but I think it kind of made her seem a lot more like the other candidates. I think the ticket was a different way to stand out, which is important, and I think she kind of lost that.
You know, I thought one of the most contentious moments of tonight's debate was a question from President Brock Wilkinson wondering why 3 of the 5 candidates had not come to speak with him about exactly what his job entails and exactly what his responsibilities are. I'm wondering what your reaction was, Anthony.
You know, it sort of amazed me that is the case. All the executive vice president candidates, including Vance when he was still in the race, they all came and they spoke with me and asked what it entailed and where I foresaw the position going. So that is an interesting thing to note out, especially because when you are the president, you would think the outgoing president, who has served for 2 years, would have a lot of good pointers as to at least what the position could be doing and what it is currently doing now.
And I think you speak to one of the most exciting aspects of this election. Next year will feature an entirely new executive board. We've had a lot of experience on the Seaboard, but next year is certainly going to usher in a lot of change. As this room empties out, I think it's time for this Editors Roundtable to sign off. We want to thank you for tuning in this evening. On behalf of the Griffin and Griff TV, thanks so much.